So I saw this online. First, it says that Kamala Harris has been going to all of her rallies drunk. And then it said that Donald Trump wants to ban violent video games. What? Is it true? Welcome to a crash course on media literacy. There's a lot of crazy stuff online right now. So let's unpack it a little bit. So, what do you do when you see questionable information? Do you A, ignore it and move on? You don't care. B, you like and share because everyone needs to know this. C, do you investigate if it's true because you like to know the truth? Or D, do you investigate and then comment or post to let others know what you found out? If you answered C or D, awesome. It's always good to investigate. If you answered B, let's rethink that a bit. It's important to not spread potentially false information. What about option A, ignoring it? Sometimes we encounter so much questionable content online that we can't respond to it all. So ignoring it may be the only practical option. But make sure that you are at least asking questions in your head rather than taking in all that information as facts, which may subtly shape your beliefs over time. You've certainly heard the word misinformation by now. It's out there a lot. Did you know that there's actually three different kinds of misinformation? First, we have, surprise, surprise, misinformation, which simply is incorrect information. It might be distributed intentionally or unintentionally. People just didn't know it was wrong. Then we have disinformation. This is also incorrect information, but the difference is that it's knowingly distributed with the intention of deceiving others. And finally, we have malinformation. This is incorrect and disturbing information that is knowingly distributed intended to harm. Some things to think about. Have you seen these in use? Which ones and where did you see them? And what were the subjects? What did you think about them or what did you question when you saw them? And then what did you do? Did you do anything? Did you share them? Did you question them? Did you make fun of them? Did you talk about them? Teachers, you might want to pause here if you want students to share out their answers. One thing you can do if you see something and you're not sure if it's true is you can go to a fact checking website. These websites are maintained by generally reporters, and one job of the press is to be a watchdog for us to let us know what's going on. And so there's a lot of rumors going on out there. It's gotten a lot worse with AI. And so there's numerous organizations that are researching like crazy and putting information out there so that we can find out the truth. Some of these are PolitiFact, Verify, FactCheck.org, Science Feedback, which of course focuses on science information, the News Literacy Project's Rumor Guard, and Snopes. Okay, so hopefully you've got fact checking covered, but what if you just want good information to start with? Where do you go? A 2024 Pew Research study found that 54% of Americans get their news from social media. Social media is not the most reliable place to get important information and facts. Why? Because the majority of, quote, news on social media is filtered through people's opinions. It's also a hotspot for mis, dis, and malinformation. Instead of going to social media for information, try using news sources that follow the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics. Yes, there is one. Have a high factuality rating and a low bias rating on mediabiasfactcheck.com. They should employ paid professional journalists and investigative reporters to create both timely and in-depth stories from around the globe. And they should publish mostly fact-based articles and clearly label any articles that are opinion or analysis. Here are a few key points from the Code of Ethics for Journalists. They should be doing this. First, they should publish only verified information, only information that they can follow up on and make sure that it's true. They also are responsible to not oversimplify or misrepresent people or ideas. They should support the open and civil exchange of ideas, welcoming conversation. They should minimize harm. That means balancing the public's right to know with individual privacy. Public figures, obviously, are more under the microscope, but when it comes to reporting on someone who's not a public figure, they really have to balance that. They also should avoid sensationalism, just trying to make us look, just doing the if it bleeds, it leads headlines, for example. Next, they should be accountable. That means correcting mistakes when they make them and being really transparent about their process and if they messed up. And finally, they should act independently. They shouldn't be taking money or doing favors for any outside group, not even advertisers. If the sources that you are looking at are not clearly striving for these things, then you might not be looking at very good sources. One half of teens cannot distinguish fact based news from news that's mixed with opinion and commentary, according to a News Literacy Project 2024 study. This really matters because people don't recognize that they're taking in the viewpoints of others rather than critically thinking about the information on their own. To help you recognize fact based news, it generally has these characteristics. Its purpose is to inform, its point of view is third person, the content should lead with the who, what, where, when, why, and how, just the basics. It gives context and background for the issues. It should present multiple viewpoints and have quotes from both sides. It should cite sources and the information should be verified. As far as the style, it's more formal. There shouldn't be any subjective adjectives that reveal the author's judgments about things. And if opinions are given, they're attributed to other people through quotes. And again, they should be balanced. On the other side, if you're seeing opinion based news, it generally has these characteristics. The purpose is to persuade, and the point of view may be first person. The content is probably more limited in context and background and will generally ignore other viewpoints or gives one side unequal weight. It may mischaracterize or offer a reductionist view of the other side, and reductionist means a simplified view of the other side's more complex arguments, but they're ignoring the complexity and the layers and the nuances because it's easier to argue against a simplistic version of the other side than to actually address their real viewpoints. And the sources of information may not be given. The style may be more conversational and it might use subjective adjectives. So words like terrible or brilliant in front of a noun to show how they feel about it. Okay, let's test our skills. Is the following statement a fact or an opinion? U.S. healthcare costs per person are the highest in the developed world. That's a fact. It can be proven by data. It's not making statements about anything but the costs. It's not talking about the quality or the wait time. It's just talking about the cost of healthcare. A provable fact. How about this one? Increasing the minimum wage is essential for the health of the U.S. economy. Fact or opinion? That one's an opinion, and the key word there is essential. Essential is a subjective word. The next statement to consider is the Trump and Harris campaigns show their desperation in the final leg of campaigning. Fact or opinion? This one's also an opinion, and the word to focus in on is desperation. That is the author's interpretation of what is going on. Unless the candidates or their campaigns have come right out and said that they are desperate, then we're just looking at someone's interpretation of what they're seeing. Here's another one to chew on. The headline reads, "To save spotted owls, U.S. officials plan to kill hundreds of thousands of another owl species." Fact or opinion? That one is a fact. It's just a statement of what they plan to do, what the policy is. We might have feelings about it for ourselves, but the statement itself is a verifiable fact. Our last one is Democracy is the greatest form of government. Fact or opinion? That one is opinion, and hopefully you've clued in by now that the subjective word in there is greatest. People could debate that. They're going to have different definitions of what that means, and it's simply just a subjective word. Most print news has opinion sections. These should be clearly labeled and separated from the main news. This is a lot easier when we had actual newspapers with different sections, but still, online, it should be very obvious what's the news and what's the opinion section. The lines between news and opinion get blurred a lot more on cable TV news, which many Americans tend to think of as major mainstream news. While we recommend print over TV news for reliability and low bias, local TV news generally is rated less biased, though the content may be limited. These are some generally well-known news sources that are rated least biased, with factual reporting in the high category, as determined by MediaBiasFactCheck.com. And a few more that you may have heard of. The groups listed here do polls and surveys, and they're often cited by other news organizations. They are rated as least biased by MediaBiasFactCheck.com. That means their data and collection processes should be trustworthy. Here are some more familiar news sources that are rated highly credible by MediaBiasFactCheck.com, and so are pretty good sources to look at. Just know that they may have the slightest left or right bias, and this does not mean that all of their content is biased. Usually it's just their opinion pieces tend to lean a little bit more in one direction or the other, but their straight up news should be mostly free of bias. Maybe you're looking at all of these news sources and you're thinking, yeah, I'm not going to be visiting their websites. But what you can do is all of these news organizations do have a presence on social media. So at the very least, you can subscribe to daily news briefs from quality, reputable sources on your social media. And that way you can stay better educated about current events. And that will help you stay away from or counter some of the misinformation. As we've taken in everything that we've learned in this video, it all boils down to these 6 points of what you can do to be a media literate superstar. Number 1, verify source material. Find the original source to make sure that the words or images are being accurately represented. 2, consider reputation and motivations. Is this a respected source dedicated to keeping people informed? Or are they trying to manipulate you to make money or for other reasons? It's usually money. And 3, read laterally. That means opening multiple browser pages to see what other reputable sources are reporting. Can you find this in other places? 4, diversify your news. Learn about quality news sources and follow them. Random social media posts are not reliable news sources. 5, share with care. Be careful what you pass on to others. Use logic and fact checking over emotions to decide what's worth passing on. And finally, 6, be aware of bias, including yours. We tend to create and seek out information that supports what we already believe or that makes us feel better about ourselves. But this distorts true understanding. This last one may be the most important part of being media literate. We need to honestly evaluate our own biases and make sure that we are asking critical questions of all information, not giving a pass to the things we agree with and want to be true. We need to look at all of it. And this is really hard because to dig into your own psychology can be uncomfortable and sometimes it's hard to see. But if we are not able to evaluate our own thinking processes, then we're going into information with blinders on. So back to those rumors from the beginning of the video. Investigation into these rumors can be found in a lot of different places, but one I really like is the News Literacy Project's Misinformation Dashboard, Election 2024. So what they do is they compile all the fact checking on different rumors regarding the election and candidates, And if you scroll down, you can see that they have a title, they have a link so you can follow the source. They have their sources like Reuters, Political Facts, Snopes, Fact Check. And they also, if you keep looking off to the right, have the theme of the misinformation and the type of the misinformation. When I clicked on the links, I found that the Harris story shows evidence of how the video is authentic, but it was slowed down to make her sound drunk. When I clicked on the Trump story, it explains that in older remarks, he does say that video games are too violent, but he has never called for a ban. The goal of all this is to encourage you to be a lifelong investigator. Avoid being a lawyer and representing only your side. And I hope you avoid becoming cynical and just giving up, because apathy is how others gain power over you. Instead, participate, investigate, and evaluate. You are smart. So hopefully, now you have some more tools to put that big old Homo sapien brain of yours to work and be a media literate superstar. Woohoo! Thank you so much for listening.